Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. Today, we're diving into a topic that affects almost all English learners: social media. We all use it. We all scroll endlessly. But the big question is it actually helping you learn English, or is it just a distraction?
That's such a good question because, honestly, social media can be both a powerful learning tool and a huge time waster. Some people use it to improve their English, while others get stuck watching random videos for hours without actually learning anything.
Exactly. It's easy to feel like you're learning just because you're exposed to English content. But if you're not using it actively, it might not be as effective as you think.
Right. So today, we're going to break it down how social media can help your English, how it might be hurting your progress, and how to actually use it in a way that benefits you.
So let's start with the positives. How can social media actually help with learning English?
Well, first of all, it gives you tons of exposure to real, everyday English. You're constantly seeing posts, captions, and comments in English, which helps you get familiar with natural sentence structures and slang.
Yes, and since people use social media to communicate casually, you get to see real-life English instead of just textbook examples.
Exactly, like, if you follow native English speakers, you'll see how they actually talk, the shortcuts they use, the phrases that are popular, and even different accents if you watch videos.
Right, and speaking of videos, platforms like TikTok and Instagram are great for learning pronunciation. You hear how words are actually spoken instead of just reading them in a book.
That's a great point, and another benefit is engagement. Unlike traditional learning, social media lets you interact with real people. You can comment on posts, reply to stories, or even join conversations in English.
Yes, and when you actually use English in real interactions, you improve much faster than just memorizing vocabulary lists.
Exactly. Plus, there are so many accounts dedicated to teaching English grammar tips, vocabulary lessons, pronunciation guides. You can literally learn new things every day.
Right, but here's the tricky part. Just because you see English all the time doesn't mean you're actually learning.
Yes, and that's where social media can also become a problem for English learners. If you're just consuming content passively, you're not really practicing.
That's a huge issue. People think, oh, I watch English videos every day, so I must be improving. But if you never speak or write in English yourself, you're not actually developing those skills.
Exactly. Another problem is distraction. It's so easy to start watching an educational video, and then suddenly, boom, you're watching cat videos for an hour.
Yep. Social media is designed to keep you on the app, not necessarily to help you learn. If you don't use it with intention, it can become more of a distraction than a learning tool.
Right, and let's not forget about bad information. Not every English tip you see online is actually correct. Some people share grammar or pronunciation rules that aren't even accurate.
That's true. So it's important to follow reliable sources and double-check anything that sounds questionable.
Exactly. So the real question is, how can we use social media to improve our English without getting distracted or relying on bad information?
That's the key. And I think the first step is to be more active instead of just watching. If you see a new phrase, try using it in a comment or a post.
Yes, and if you watch a video in English, don't just listen and repeat what they say. Try to shadow the speaker to practice pronunciation.
Another great tip is to set specific goals. Instead of just scrolling, decide, today, I'm going to learn 5 new words and actually use them in a sentence.
That's a great idea. And also, don't be afraid to interact. Comment on posts, reply to tweets, join discussions. Real conversation practice is one of the best ways to improve.
Yes, and if you really want to level up, start creating content in English. Post your thoughts, share your opinions, or even make videos talking about your day.
That's such a great way to practice. It might feel scary at first, but the more you do it, the more confident you'll become in using English.
Exactly. So instead of letting social media control your learning, take charge and use it intentionally. That's how you turn it into a powerful tool for improving your English.
And once you start using social media intentionally, you'll notice a huge difference in how much you actually learn. It stops being just entertainment and becomes a real learning tool.
Exactly. And another thing, try to follow creators who actually help you improve. There are so many great English teachers, podcasts, and language learners out there sharing useful tips.
Yes, and don't just follow them, engage with their content. Leave a comment, ask a question, or even try explaining something in English. The more you interact, the more confident you'll become.
That's a great point. And another tip, change your social media settings to English. If your apps, notifications, and searches are in English, you'll get used to seeing the language all the time.
Yes, even small things like changing your phone's language to English can help. It forces you to process English in your everyday life.
And let's not forget about community. Social media is full of language learning groups and online communities where you can connect with other learners and native speakers.
Yes, finding a group of people who are also learning English makes a big difference. You can practice together, share tips, and keep each other motivated.
Exactly. So instead of just scrolling mindlessly, start using social media as a tool to actively engage with English. It can make a huge difference in your progress.
100%. The key is to be intentional. If you take small steps every day, commenting, writing posts, interacting with content, you'll see real improvement in your English.
And once you make it a habit, using English online won't feel like studying anymore. It'll just be part of your daily routine.
Right. And that's when you know you're really making progress, when English isn't just something you practice, but something you live.
And when you start living the language, everything changes. It's no longer just something you're trying to learn. It becomes part of how you think, interact, and express yourself.
Exactly. And that's the goal, right? To make English a natural part of your daily life instead of something you force yourself to study.
Right. And speaking of that, another way to use social media effectively is by curating your feed. If you only follow content in your native language, you're missing out on so many opportunities to immerse yourself in English.
That's a great point. If you start following English-speaking influencers, educators, and even regular users who post in English, you'll constantly be surrounded by the language without even trying.
Yes, and it's not just about learning from teachers. Even following travel bloggers, tech reviewers, or comedy pages in English helps, because you're exposing yourself to real and natural conversations.
Exactly. Plus, when you follow content that interests you, it makes the learning process fun. If you love fashion, follow English-speaking fashion influencers. If you love gaming, follow gamers who speak English. That way, you're learning without even realizing it.
And that's when learning becomes effortless. You're not just studying English, you're experiencing it in ways that are meaningful to you.
Right. And another trick is to actually engage with the content you see. Instead of just watching a video or reading a post, leave a comment in English. Even something simple like, "This is so interesting," or "I never knew that," helps you practice writing in a real-life context.
Yes, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. No one is judging you. In fact, native speakers and other learners will probably appreciate your effort and respond to you.
100%. The more you put yourself out there, the more comfortable you'll become using English. It's all about building confidence.
And confidence comes from practice. If you're using social media every day, make sure you're actually using English, not just passively consuming content.
Exactly, because at the end of the day, social media is a tool. It can either help you learn faster or slow you down. It all depends on how you use it.
Right. So ask yourself, are you using social media to grow your English? Or are you just scrolling without a purpose? If you make small, intentional changes, you can turn your daily screen time into one of the best language learning tools you have.
And that's really the key, using social media with purpose. If you approach it the right way, it can be one of the most powerful tools for improving your English.
Absolutely. And one more thing, don't be afraid to put yourself out there. A lot of learners hesitate to comment or post in English because they're afraid of making mistakes. But guess what? Mistakes are part of learning.
Yes, and honestly, most people won't even notice small mistakes. They're just happy to see you engaging and using English.
Exactly. And if someone does correct you, that's actually a good thing. It means you're getting real feedback and learning how to improve.
That's such a great mindset. Instead of fearing mistakes, embrace them. Every mistake is a step closer to fluency.
And the more you engage in English online, the more natural it will feel. Eventually, you won't even have to think about it, it'll just flow.
That's the goal. So instead of just watching English content, start using it. Comment, post, join discussions, whatever helps you practice in a real way.
And remember, social media is just a tool. It's up to you to make sure it's helping you move forward, not holding you back.
Yes, so be intentional, be active, and most importantly, have fun with it. Learning English doesn't have to be boring, and social media proves that.
100%. If you make the right choices, you can turn your daily scrolling into one of the most effective ways to improve your English.
And once you start using social media this way, it doesn't even feel like studying. You're just naturally absorbing English while doing something you already enjoy.
Exactly. And that's the best kind of learning, the kind that happens without pressure. The more you expose yourself to English, the easier it becomes over time.
Right. And another tip, if you're someone who loves watching short videos, try to repeat what you hear. It's called shadowing. You listen to a native speaker and try to copy their pronunciation and rhythm.
That's such a good technique, and you don't even need to record yourself if you're not comfortable yet. Just repeating it out loud helps a lot with pronunciation and fluency.
Yes, but if you do feel confident enough, you can take it a step further. Record yourself saying the same sentences and compare it to the original. It's a great way to hear where you need improvement.
And you don't have to sound perfect. The goal is to get used to speaking out loud, even if you make mistakes.
Exactly. And another great habit is writing short posts in English. Even if it's just one sentence about your day, it's still practice.
That's a solid idea. And if you're not sure what to write, just describe something simple like what you ate, how your day was, or something interesting you learned.
Yes, and don't worry too much about grammar at first. The goal is to express yourself and get comfortable with forming sentences in English.
Right. Plus, the more you post, the more feedback you might get from native speakers or other learners. It's a great way to improve.
Definitely. And one more thing, if you see a word or phrase you don't understand, don't just ignore it. Look it up, write it down, and try to use it in a sentence.
That's such an underrated tip. A lot of people just skip over unfamiliar words. But if you actually take a moment to learn them, your vocabulary grows so much faster.
Yes, and the more you do this, the more natural it becomes. Soon, you'll start recognizing new words everywhere, and your understanding will improve without even trying too hard.
Exactly. It's all about being engaged with the language instead of just letting it pass by. If you actively listen, read, and interact, your English will improve way faster.
100%. So instead of just watching English content, make sure you're actually using it. That's the real key to learning.
And that's really the main takeaway. Social media can be an amazing tool for learning English, but only if you use it actively. Watching is great, but engaging is what actually helps you improve.
Exactly. Whether it's commenting, posting, repeating what you hear, or writing short captions in English, every small action adds up over time.
Right. And remember, you don't need to be perfect. Mistakes are part of the process, and the more you put yourself out there, the more confident you'll become.
Yes, so if you're spending time on social media anyway, why not make it work for your English? Small, intentional changes can make a huge difference.
Absolutely. So go ahead, comment on a post in English today. Follow a new English-speaking creator, or even try shadowing a short video. Just do something that helps you engage with the language.
And most importantly, have fun with it. Learning English doesn't have to feel like a chore. If you enjoy the process, you'll stick with it and see real progress.
That's it. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time with more English learning tips.
Bye, everyone. Keep practicing and stay consistent.
Bye.
Bye.